The Horse in the Prince's Stables by Firecat057. Prologue. I didn't want to be cursed, but that's just how it happened. I wish that my mother was around to love me the way a mother should love her firstborn. But that's just not how it happened. I craved normalcy and desired to live the life of a normal girl, but fate dealt me different cards. Lady Alice and her husband, Lord Curtis, were getting ready to have their firstborn child. The reactions to this soon-to-be new addition to their little family were very different, however. Lady Alice envisioned her child to become a well-bred, polite, and apathetic, a mere image of her ladyship. He or she would be the epitome of pure nobility. Lord Curtis, on the other hand, harbored images of himself pushing his child on a swing, teaching him or her to read, and raising the child to become whomever their child was destined to become. He imagined the child to have artistic talents, and he dwelled on the idea of himself encouraging him or her to grow and be confident in him or herself. Both were anticipating the moment that their new baby would be brought out into the world. Lady Alice couldn't wait to sink her teeth into the newborn's life and become the dominating figure that the child could look up to. Lord Curtis was ecstatic for the moment he could hold his baby and see its first smile. About the time Lady Alice was getting ready to give birth, they happened to be staying at the castle of King James, Queen Lashita, and a 14-year-old son, Prince Philip. Lord Curtis and King James were very close friends, and previously the king had invited the lord and his lady to come have dinner with them to celebrate the new life that they were about to bring forth. However, during dessert and amidst the laughing and the talking between the adults, the contractions started. She was rushed into a room where Lady Alice moaned and screamed, trying to push the baby out. Lord Curtis paced worriedly outside, and the king and his wife tried their best to comfort him. The king had specifically made this room for his wife for her pregnancy. It was soundproof, or close to it. A father couldn't bear to not wait outside, since going inside was out of the question. When little could be heard, the father would hopefully feel less stressed. The birthing was taking a long time, and Lady Alice felt herself growing weaker and weaker. A third midwife entered the room. Her hair was long and mangled, and her face looked pale. Her cheeks were gaunt. The eyes on that woman's face were a dull gray, and her shoulders stooped. She rushed forward eagerly to perform her duties and attend to her ladyship. Lady Alice took one look at the less-than-perfect woman and gave an ear-piercing shriek. Some strength had returned to her the moment she saw the third midwife. "Get that beast out of here!" she cried hoarsely. "I won't allow my child to see that horse of a woman. My baby's eyes will not be tainted with this imperfection." Everyone in the room appeared horrified at the noble woman's words. She obviously didn't realize who the newcomer was. They glanced fearfully at the third midwife, who halted instantly at the harsh words. For a moment, everyone was silent. Lady Alice glared at the woman fiercely, believing herself to be higher up than the midwife. Then, the third midwife straightened her spine slowly and stood tall, staring defiantly back into Lady Alice's angry green eyes. "Is beauty all you care about?" the woman spat. "The outer looks, the perfect image is all that matters. But I," she gestured to herself, "and none other than the king's witch herself, Gabriella Knight, and you," she growled, "are nothing more than a disgusting whore." Everyone gasped. Alice's face grew pale. In that moment, the witch's hair became mangled and suddenly looked silky and soft. Her cheekbones lifted slightly, and her eyes turned to a bright golden yellow. Her lips, once flat and uninteresting, now were full and red. The dull gray clothes of a midwife shrunk and hugged against her body, transforming into a slimming dark red dress, which flowed out a bit near the hem. A black cloak appeared around her shoulders, also clinging close to her body. This was the true form of the witch. "Yes," Gabriella purred. "I know that this child you are now giving birth to is not Lord Curtis's child." She gave a sharp and cruel laugh. "Ha! You nobles think you can get away with anything." She smiled wickedly at the noblewoman. "Well, you are wrong." She strode forward and leaned down, her face very close to Lady Alice's. She bent even closer to whisper in her ear. "Your daughter shall be the very creature you called me. Do you think you can love such a common creature? She won't be anything special, at least not in your eyes. Fortunately for her, you probably won't even live long enough to get to know her." Gabriella took delight in the fear that shone in Lady Alice's eyes. "Farewell, Lady Alice." And then Gabriella Knight turned to the other people in the room, the two midwives. "You are forbidden to speak of this to anyone. Tonight, both the mother and girl shall die. Fake the baby's death and bring it to me as soon as you can. If you tell anyone," Gabriella spoke in a dangerously calm tone, "I will make your lives a living hell. Do you understand?" Both women nodded their heads quickly, tears forming in their eyes. "Good. I'm glad we have an agreement," she chuckled quietly, walking quickly over to the window. Gabriella stepped out onto the sill. A slight breeze tugged at her cloak and dress. She tossed a glance over her shoulder, a sly smile playing at her lips. Then she took a single step out into the air and vanished. The stunned silence was broken by an agony-filled scream from Lady Alice. Both midwives jumped from the shock, then returned to her ladyship's side. The birthing process had just become increasingly painful for Lady Alice. She screamed and clutched at the bedsheets, sweat pouring out of her, and her stomach spasmed violently. Sickening crunches came from inside, and blood spilled out from her body. The midwives had never felt so terrified. Finally, with one last push, the baby was free. Lady Alice lay gasping upon the pillows, sobbing weakly from the pain. She felt her life slipping away. "Please," she croaked to the oddly silent midwives. Let me see my baby. Is it a boy or a girl?" A girl, milady. It's a girl." The midwife's shaky voice carried into Lady Alice's ears. She smiled contentedly and felt triumphant. That witch was a phony. She could pull off a few magic tricks, but in reality she was harmless. She would have to talk to the king about her. Hopefully he would execute her. "Let me see my baby," she demanded again, panting. Slowly, the midwife approached her with a bundle in her arms. They had already wrapped it in a blanket. It seemed sort of lumpy. When Lady Alice reached for the baby, a piece of the blanket fell away, revealing moist hair. Horror crept into the noblewoman, and as she brought the baby closer. When she saw what it was, she screamed, or at least tried. She was so weak and her throat was sore that it sounded like a raspy gasp. She tried to throw it away from her, but a midwife jumped forward and caught it. Her eyes filled with tears as she realized that this baby would not have a loving mother. "That thing," Lady Alice hissed, "is not my baby. Kill it! Kill it!" Suddenly she started choking, and she managed to cough weakly. "Kill it," she whispered. Her eyes grew dull with lifelessness, and her chest stopped moving up and down. An unnatural stillness filled the room. Lady Alice was dead. The midwife knocked hesitantly on the door. "Mistress Knight," she called. "Mistress Knight, are you there?" The door creaked open, and the tall figure of Gabriella Knight stood in the doorway. The midwife cowered a little at her presence. She cradled something in her arms, something alive. "Ah, is this the child of that narcissistic woman?" A cruel glint passed through her eyes. The midwife flinched. "Yes, milady, this is her daughter." She presented the baby to the witch. "I apologize, mistress, but I have other duties to attend to. So may I leave?" Gabriella reached down and scooped the delicate creature into her arms. "Yes, Matilda, be on your way. But let me say this." She held the woman still with her piercing glare. "You are going to be in charge of this girl. You will raise her and take care of her in her mother's place." The midwife looked shocked. "But how, milady? She is not even a "I'll explain that later. Now go." The midwife, still looking puzzled, bowed, then quickly hurried down the stairs of the witch's tower. Gabriella closed the door, and it shut with a clang. Her room was dark, and the moonlight which illuminated the floor through one window cast eerie shadows everywhere. The witch peered down into the baby's curious eyes. "Black as midnight, due to your mother's sins." Gabriella spoke softly. "For 1 hour every night, you can become your true self once again. But only can you lift this curse if another's true love you can gain." She kissed the newborn's forehead gently. You should be given a name. If I had a daughter, what would I name her?" She took a moment to think. "Kaylin, that is your name. Kaylin of the night. I like the sound of that. Now, I must take you to your new home." Stepping over to the window, Gabriella Knight peered out onto the castle grounds, searching for a structure that rested in the courtyards. She smiled when she spotted it. The palace stables.